for gathering with me here today to mourn the loss of SpongeBob SquarePants. I met SpongeBob through a mutual friend from the land. Her name is Sandy Cheeks and lived in Texas. She was friends with my aunt and uncle. At the time, SpongeBob was working at the Krusty Krab, and I'd heard he was famous for his Krabby Patties and was the best chef in all of Bikini Bottom. SpongeBob was born and raised in Bikini Bottom. The rest of his family went on to go into the cleaning business, but SpongeBob knew that there was more to his life than that. He was a yellow, porous, and bright little sponge. I have hundreds of memories with my dear friend Sponge, but a few take the cake. SpongeBob was not a good driver, but nobody ever wanted to break the news to him. One time during our driving class, he had to drive his teacher, Mrs. Puff, around Bikini Bottom to see if he was eligible to get his license. He started off all right, but got so incredibly nervous that he steered off the sand into a mountain of coral reef and crashed into a family of sea urchins. Mrs. Puff literally puffed up like a balloon. Needless to say, SpongeBob never ended up getting his license. Another great memory I have with him is the time we played for the Super Bowl halftime show. A lot of people were seriously doubting our abilities, but SpongeBob has the lungs of a fish and can sing beautiful opera. We had to perform in a bubble bowl because of his inability to breathe out of water. I was on piano, and Squidward, who's another one of SpongeBob's friends, was directing us. We rocked the stage and sang Sweet Victory. We definitely had the time of our lives together. SpongeBob had so many friends: Squidward, Patrick, Sandy, and Mr. Krabs, just to name a few. Mr. Krabs was his boss and is extremely frugal with money and time. He loved SpongeBob dearly, though, and always gave him Employee of the Month. Squidward was Sponge's neighbor and worker. He was very mellow, and some might even say bitter, but deep down he always loved and cared for SpongeBob. Patrick was Sponge's best friend. He told me all sorts of things that they got into together during their friendship. Their favorite thing to do was go jellyfishing. I went with them a few times, but I could never get the hang of it. Sponge and Patrick were pros. Sandy is a squirrel from Texas, and also my dear friend. She got tired of the land and wanted to broaden her horizons by living in a bubble under the sea. She and SpongeBob had a very special relationship. Every time he would visit her, he would have to wear a helmet with water just so he could be in her home. They had a compromise for one another, but SpongeBob thought the absolute world of her. One time, she became incredibly homesick, and he threw her a surprise party at the Krusty Krab. He made her a pecan pie with a can of peas in a pie. He didn't realize, though, that they were actually pecans, but SpongeBob always had the purest intentions. One memory I will always have with SpongeBob is when he made a song about having fun. He said that F is for friends who do stuff together, U is for you and me, N is for anywhere, anytime at all, down here in the big blue sea. He was always looking for ways to make people smile and to be a good friend. SpongeBob didn't just live alone, though, in his little pineapple under the sea. He had a pet which he loved to the core. His name was Gary, and he was a small snail that he got from the local snail shop. Gary was tolerable of SpongeBob's quirky personality and really mellowed him out. I would bring my cat sometimes, Frank, over for playdates once a week, and they always had a blast together. SpongeBob and Gary were like best friends, and I can only speak on his behalf that he's deeply mourning the passing of SpongeBob. While SpongeBob was a very popular individual in this sweet town, there was somebody that was always out to get him, and his name is Plankton. He's an evil individual and always had it out for poor Sponge. He was a chef as well and always wanted to figure out how the Krusty Krab was so successful. He knew about their secret sauce and always came up with ways to steal the Krabby Patty formula. One day, he and his computer wife had come up with a laser beam and transformed everyone into zombies. Since SpongeBob is a sponge and is very porous, it seeped right through his little body and killed him. He was admitted to the hospital and immediately was injected with medication, but his pores were filled with toxic chemicals from Plankton's device. He was pronounced dead 2 hours later on July 4th of 2014. I'm honored to say that SpongeBob has willed me his famous spatula that he used every day for 9 years at the Krusty Krab. I can only hope to pass on his tradition to make as good of Krabby Patties as he could. SpongeBob was a funny, driven, and lighthearted individual and will be missed by all. I will miss his pure heart and friendship more than anything, and the way he could make me smile on the worst of days. While we are all here together to mourn the death of our beloved Sponge, none can be mourning him more than the person who brought him to life in 1999, Stephen Hillenburg. Thank you for joining with me today.